Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jiva Goswami is celebrated personality. He is one of the principal associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And a little background on that you all know. Does anybody here need an introduction to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Do you know who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Tell me something that you know about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
He comes in like the effulgence of Radharani, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Close. There is definitely some relationship between Krishna, the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the effulgence of Radharani. And let's do the background. Let's call that background. Krishna appears towards the end of the previous yuga, the previous yugas, Dwarka Yuga. And at the end, towards the end of that Dwarka Yuga, Krishna appears, and one of the things that Krishna does is he speaks Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. And then at the end of his life, he departs this world. He doesn't come sit over on this side so you can see the screen. And after Krishna departed, there's a juncture, a sandhi, where it's in between the previous yuga and this current yuga. And during that sandhi, Krishna is considering in this upcoming yuga, Kali Yuga, people are not going to have a capacity to understand the Bhagavad Gita. This is one of the ISKCON rituals. Go ahead. Don't make too much of it. Krishna considered people in the age of Kali, conditions are so bad. Manda sumanta matayo manda bhagya bhadrata, bad and more bad, worse. Therefore, how will they understand? They won't be able to understand. So to help them understand, then he started this commentary is describing. He could have considered, sending a representative or something, and he said, the best is I come myself. And I teach how to live one's life. You have to come over here because there's a screen and you won't see the screen over there. This is going to happen. We need a master ceremonies to stand over there and help people understand it more. If you can see around the corner, that's fine. We can put up a big mirror. I'll come myself. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, but Krishna considered in order to understand the teachings that I gave as Krishna, the teachings that he gave as Krishna is love for Krishna. But how can I teach that unless they adopt the role of my own devotee? Because there's the abode of love and there's Krishna, the object of love. So I have to take the position of the abode of love, or the devotee of the Supreme Lord Krishna. So Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself as a devotee of Krishna. But then he doesn't stop there. He desired very much to experience more than teach people how to fulfill the function of Bhagavad Gita, to surrender to him. He wanted to experience three things. This is internal reason for Lord Chaitanya's appearance found in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. One of them you mentioned. He adopted the luster of Radha. He wanted to experience the love that Radha has for him. And he wanted to experience the happiness of the love that Radha has for him. And he wanted to experience the qualities in him that she experiences that stimulate her love. Three things. That's what Lord Chaitanya. Krishna himself, in the role of the devotee Krishna himself, and specifically in the Radha Bhava, duty, the luster, Subhavitam, Krishna Naumi Sarupam. Although he is Krishna himself, Krishna Naumi Swarupam, he didn't appear as Krishna himself, he appeared as a form of Radha. So when he came, he brought with him many eternal associates to assist him in his loving pastime. That's one of the things that the Lord does. You gotta come around. This beautiful love. There we go. Okay. He brought the eternal associate with him to assist him in his pastimes of experiencing and teaching love of Radha for Krishna. And among many, so there's a book titled Gora Gunadesh Deepika. Gora Gunadesh Deepika lamp. It illuminates the who's in Krishna Lila is in Gora Lila, who is in Gora Lila is that personality in Krishna Lila. No book, the who's who book. And so these eternal associates of Krishna, they have their place and their name and their form and their activities and their role and their function in Lord Chaitanya's Lila. And amongst them, one of the purposes that Lord Chaitanya had was leaving behind some teachings. So after him, people would know how to have love for Krishna like Radharani. So it's the conjugal love. That's Radha's love for Krishna. There's different classes. And he specifically experienced and taught how to come to that stage when they come to that stage. And he didn't personally, he chose to not make writings, but he invested the potency to do those writings and to understand his teachings in certain devotees, particularly the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Jiva Goswami is one of those 6. That's who's Jiva Goswami. And in those 6, amongst the 6 Goswamis, he's the youngest. And the eldest was Sanatana Goswami, next in age and otherwise was Rupa Goswami. They were brothers, Sanatana and Rupa Goswami. And those 2 brothers had a third brother whose name was Anupam. And Anupam died when he was young, but before he died, Jiva Goswami was his son. So Jiva Goswami was the nephew of Rupa and Sanatana. And he became next in line in their recipient section. You look in the Bhagavad Gita, in the introduction section, there's a list of our recipient discussion. And you'll see Jiva Goswami's name, because he's one of the very, very prominent personalities in our recipient discussion, prominent in a number of ways. One of them is his scholarship. To give an example, he was such a scholar that his uncle, Sanatana Goswami, had written commentary on the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. And because Jiva was so super scholarly, he asked Jiva, would you be so kind, could you please edit, and you find some mistakes, then you can correct those mistakes. My commentary. Jiva Goswami said, I'm sure there's no mistakes, but he asked me to do some service, so I'll do the service. So when Jiva Goswami made a commentary on his commentary, Tika, on the 10th canto commentary. That's one of his 4 commentaries on Srimad Bhagavatam. He was an amazing author of this. He's one of my heroes, so I'm going to speak a little bit about my hero. One of his commentaries was like Prabhupada, verse by verse, the entire Bhagavatam. And he identified the title of it as Krama Sandarbha, Krama, step by step, the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, 18,000 verses. And another was topic by topic. And he gave it a different name. The Shat Sandarbhas, or 6 Sandarbhas. And one of those 6 Sandarbhas is Bhakti Sandarbha. What we're going to, I plan to speak on is taken from there. Just 2 verses. We're going to spend like an hour on 2 verses. Because you'll see, he's brilliant. And he certainly is well read. He's in touch with all the scriptures. And in those times, there wasn't a library. There wasn't like, I have a computer. And I have lots and lots and lots of commentaries and stuff like that in the computer. But he didn't have a computer. He just had a memory. And vast reading of those literatures. And he knew which ones to select from. In other words, some are less credible. There's the whole thing of scholarship. How do you identify what's worthy of being commented and being referred to as a good source? So he had everything. And another one of his commentaries, besides the topic by topic one, the Satsandarbhas, he very interesting. He wrote a commentary, Gopal Chandra. Now, both Sandarbha is a certain type of, and the Chandra is a certain type of literature. You have to come around to see the screen over here, unless you have special eyes. Look at that front row seat. Gopal Chandra. Gopal Chandra is the Bhagavatam commentary. Krishna Vrindavan, Krishna out of Vrindavan, Krishna. And there's a certain type of literature called Champu. So one of his books was, he wrote a book about what the Champu, and then he wrote Champu. Like he's an amazing person. So there are personalities outside of our disciplic discussion who have described him this way. He's the greatest scholar and philosopher that ever lived and never will be one. He's just, the painting that you see, he is seated at the Radha Damodar temple. That's a whole other story. During this time, during the time of the 6 Goswamis in Vrindavan, there was a place of Krishna's pastimes, but the place of his pastimes was basically forgotten. And so the 2 assignments given to those 6 Goswamis was to write books, which he empowered them to do and told them what to write, and have full realization of everything that they wrote as they wrote it, but also to reestablish the places of pilgrimage in Vrindavan for future generations. All this was for achieving the purpose of Goswami's appearance, restoring Vrindavan. So when he came, Jiva Goswami came after his two uncles were already there. And this place, this area was given to Jiva Goswami to reside in by Rupa Goswami. Although Rupa Goswami was second, and generally the younger brother defers to the elder brother by Vedic culture. Rupa Goswami was especially respected. And Jiva Goswami became his disciple. And he gave him this area to reside in. Not only he gave this area to reside in, Rupa Goswami had a vision or a dream that he wanted, the form of Krishna wanted Rupa Goswami to make a deity of Krishna for him personally. He wasn't a deity carver, it wasn't his profession, but he secured some marble from Jaipur, black marble, and he personally carved the deity Radha Damodar or Damodar, which Jiva Goswami then worshipped. When you have a deity, then it's appropriate that there's a temple. So he established a temple, Radha Damodar temple, became his place. And because he's Jiva Goswami, he was then entrusted, this is very important, he was entrusted with the original manuscripts of Rupa and Sanatana to keep for safekeeping. Because if you don't have original manuscripts, then what did sir, you're gonna have to sit so you can see the screen. The screens are over here. Sorry to disturb you. You want you to see the screen. So he established a temple, and the temple, because it was the other Goswamis lived under a tree, and he lived in a temple, they gave him the manuscripts for safekeeping. And then eventually, all of Rupa Goswami's manuscripts, all of Sanatana Goswami's manuscripts, all of Raghunath Das Goswami's manuscripts were kept at the Radha Damodar temple for centuries, for a long time, not centuries, for a long time. And eventually, all those manuscripts were given to a place where they were digitalized and secured, preserved, and all the modern ways. But all the original manuscripts of these Goswamis were in his care. So it was a nice service for posterity. That means us preserving his and everyone else's manuscripts. So one of those six Sandarbhas is Bhakti Sandarbha. We're going to be discussing just to get a picture of his erudition, 42, 43, 44. And the way that the Sandarbha compositions are done is topic by topic. He would take a certain topic within that topic and then develop it. In this case, this particular topic spans just 3 verses. And the topic is Bhakti Shakti's effect upon the source of Bhakti. And we're going to, the image on the screen is Anu Swami's translation. There are others, but Anu Swami's translation is readily available. And here's how it begins. Well, this is towards the end. Bhagavan is the sole cause of Bhakti. And Bhakti descends into a living being by the grace of Bhagavan. So this is the third of these 3 verses. So Bhagavan he's the source of everything. Since he's the source of everything, he's certainly the source of Bhakti. And how does he become the source of Bhakti? Well, Bhagavan, he's the Shaktiman, he's the possessor of Shakti, and he has Shaktis. And the Shaktis are not different than him, because it's like the sun shines. It's not different than the sun, although categorically the sun shines, not the sun. It's inseparable. Similarly, the Shaktis of Bhagavan are inseparable from him. And he instructs his Bhakti Shakti potency to give Bhakti some portion of her to every living entity. Which means every living entity, not just humans, every living entity, inherently has bhakti. Not only not has bhakti, but according to the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Prema Bhakti, Nityasiddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kavavoy, Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte, Karaya Yador. The Krishna Prema is already within, bhakti is already within. But bhakti can be dormant and bhakti can be awakened. And how does bhakti become awakened? By contact with bhakti. Just like, in Sankhya philosophy, the house that we're sitting in, there's fire that's stored. There's wood, and within wood there's fire, but it's stored. It's not sitting in a hot house. It's stored, but there's a way to make the fire come out that's contact with fire. The fire that's within comes out. It's already there. That's the Sankhya principle. There's a whole other bunch of things to say about Sankhya, but I won't say all so many things. That's another class, another book. But bhakti is already within, and bhakti can be awakened by contact with bhakti. So he, Bhagavan, is the sole cause of the bhakti that's within, the cause of everything. And he arranges for Bhakti Shakti to extend into a living being by his grace. This is what he writes in his Sandarbha. Bhakti's grace in the form of bestowing bhakti upon a jiva is very special because bhakti attracts and pleases even Bhagavan himself, although he is eternally complete in and of himself. Now, most of you have probably heard of these recently. So you know this invocation or introductory verse of Ishopanishad. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudasya Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. The Purnam is complete. And the verse is saying in simple language, the source of everything is complete. And within that source of everything is complete, there's so many complete units that emanate from the complete source. And they're also complete in and of themselves. So he is complete. And his ananda, because his form, Satchit Ananda, is also complete. He's Atmarama. He's complete. His ananda capacity is complete. But there's a mystery described in these three anuchets, and that is his complete and unlimited ananda can increase. Which sounds like, wait a minute, can you do that again? Sure. His unlimited and complete ananda can increase. That means it wasn't limited, it wasn't complete, it wasn't unlimited. If it can increase, then there's something more than what it is. That's the mystery. Part of the mystery of bhakti. Now going back toward the beginning, 42, bhakti bestows bliss even on Bhagavan himself. This is how Jiva Goswami, this is a translation cut and paste of his writing. He wrote and then commented upon what he wrote. Bhagavan is intrinsically self-endowed with haladini, the delight-giving potency, which is an aspect of his Swarup Shakti, the potency that constitutes his very nature. It is this Ladini Shakti that conveys bliss to him and to others, just as light emanating from a luminous object illuminates both itself and other objects. So let's go break that down a little bit. His teachings are subtle, so you have to contemplate and ponder what is it that he's saying. Here's I like Radhika Raman, Some of you here may know who is Radha Gurman. He's a wonderful devotee who, when he was still a teenager, he got a full scholarship at Oxford University as a teenager. He got a PhD from Oxford University in 3 verses of Paramatma Sandarbha. He likes Jiva Goswami too. And recently, like 2 months ago, he gave a nice seminar in ISKCON, Silicon Valley, or out there in California, San Jose, California, on turning the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam. And one of the sections was a 3-part seminar was on when reading, there's the Western way, or our conventional way of reading, and you study something or read something because you want to get something. Like, many of the persons in the room are college graduates. When you start college, you identify what's the area of study I want to develop. And then there's an expectation that as you're studying, while you're enrolling and doing your studies and doing the things that students do, I want to get an occupation. I want to qualify myself for whatever that is that you want to use that one's occupation is. So you're kind of cherry picking, looking for something that can help me develop my skills so that I can become good in my profession and you don't become good for that. Hopefully the job, and with some job comes money, with some job money comes stuff. When you have money and stuff, then you get married, you get a house, and you get, you live your life prepared. So that's the Western kind of education, and then there's the Vedic kind of education where that's not ideal. The approach is not ideal. The approach is Scotty Gurman. I really like it. What is the author trying to give to you? Read, or as we're going along, try to understand what is it that Jiva Goswami would like to give to us. We're going to have to stop speaking, allow you to come around the corner so you can see the screen that's over here. And then when you can see the screen that's over here, I'll stop. I'll continue speaking. Near front row seat. Because you knew you were coming. So let's carry on. We all know what Ladini Shakti, that means Radharani. And Swarup Shakti, Swarupa means his own. Swarupa, his own Shakti. That's him. His existence is his Swarup Shakti. He is, so there's a non-difference between the possessor of potency and the potency. The sun and the sunshine. And of his Swarup Shakti, there's a very important part, that's the Haladini part, or the Ananda part, the delight-giving potency or pleasure-giving potency. So in Krishna's Ladini Shakti, or Radharani, gives him pleasure. It is this Ladini Shakti that conveys bliss to him and to others. And to others, and to others part is how Bhakti Shakti, let's do this. What's Bhakti Shakti or Bhakti Devi? Answer. She is an expansion of the Ladini Shakti. As Krishna can expand, his energies can expand. And they do. And his pleasure-giving potency expands as Bhakti Devi. And then the order is given to Bhakti Devi. I have some nice service for you. Yes, some service. What is it? Please, some portion of you invest in all unlimited totality of living entities. Some portion of you. So you invest some eternally. It's not like once upon a time it wasn't, but it's just part of the makeup of the living entities. They're also Satchitananda. And that Satchitananda is part of Krishna's expansion of Krishna's loving Shakti, which is him. So that at the top. He bestows bliss even on Bhagavan himself. That's how it happens, because he bestows bhakti even on all living entities. Then here's a little graphic to illustrate what he just wrote. The Jiva is both conscious and possesses consciousness. Now, I remember once upon a time being a young brahmachari and hearing Prabhupada say this in some recorded lectures, and I thought, that sounds cool. What does it mean? The Jiva is both conscious and consciousness. But he linked it, just as the illustration is, just as a lamp is luminous, also that light from the luminous lamp lights up other things in the room, like pots and things. When I read it, a Upanishad verse that said exactly that, then I could understand. This is what Prabhupada meant. The living entity is conscious or luminous, and that consciousness expands, not just conscious, but consciousness. You can be conscious of pots and plates. You can be conscious of, the sound of the heater is going on because of the work that's called outside. You may not pay attention to it, but it's there, and et cetera, et cetera. To be conscious of things that you're not necessarily conscious of without consciousness. Simple. The principle is simple. So, similarly, bhakti is itself the supreme functional capacity. That's the translation of the Sanskrit phrase parama. Vritti. Vritti, the capacity, the supreme capacity. And this is the intrinsic potency of bhakti is one of Krishna's potencies. It's an expansion of Krishna's Ladini Shakti, or intrinsic potency. And bhakti itself is a small part of that. It's the supreme functional capacity. Bhagavan remains eternally situated in his fullness while constantly transmitting this potency of bhakti to his devotees. Then, by contact with his own bliss-giving potency in the form of bhakti situated in his devotees, he experiences still greater delight. Very sensible, very logical. A very nice expression found in Chaitanya Charitamrita and Nectar Devotion is this one. It says the same thing. The happiness of the gopis is to see the happiness of Krishna. The happiness of the lover is to see the happiness of the beloved. And when the happiness of the beloved increases, the lover feels happiness that increases their happiness. And when the beloved sees the happiness in his lover increase, he becomes, or the object becomes, in this case, Krishna and the gopis. When the gopis want to see Krishna happy, and that signs that Krishna is experiencing the happiness derived from their interactions with him, their leelas with him, or their conversations with him, or their glances with him, or whatever, and they see his happiness increases. That's their happiness, and Krishna sees their happiness increase, his happiness increases, and there is this competition between the two, ever increasing, unlimited and ever increasing. That's the contradiction. unlimited and ever increasing. Sounds like it's limited, because how can you increase it? It's unlimited. But this is the nature of the logic-defined nature of spiritual life. Although Bhagavan is the embodiment of joy, sukha, rupa, his pleasure increases in contact with the bhakti of his devotee. Nice. It's like he uses this example, two examples. The offering of Ganges unto the Ganges. Then the Ganges doesn't increase by the sadhu offering a pot full of Ganges unto the Ganges. But it's devotion to the Ganges. It's an offering unto the Ganges of what you offer to the Ganges. Pot full of Ganges. Or worship of the sun. Worship of the sun is by offering a lamp unto the sun. And what's the lamp? It's the light of the sun. A much smaller version. And that's a way of worshiping. And similarly, bhakti is something that's already intrinsic within Krishna. And it's just a tiny, tiny, tiny something. But Krishna's happiness is increased through that offering of love, even from its little living entities like us. Again, the Bhagavan is the sole cause of bhakti within the Jiva. That's where we started. Resolution of this inherent contradiction. How can he, who is already full in himself, Atma Rama, expand his blissfulness? Jiva Goswami does it, said it, now he's going to go through it again. Answer. Bhagavan is supremely blissful by nature. This bliss is of two types. The bliss that's intrinsic is Swarupananda, and the second is transmitted through the potency stemming from this essential being. Again, the same Swarup Shakti, or Swarup Shakti Ananda. The Swarup is Shakti. By virtue of the former, Bhagavan relishes the bliss of his own constitutional nature. By the latter, he first transmits his own bliss potency to his devotees, and then relishes that bliss present within them through loving reciprocation with them. That's how bhakti works. And the happiness of Krishna with this unlimited increases. Thus, when Bhagavan conveys his bliss potency to his devotees, tiny, tiny, tiny quantums of bliss potency, and they serve him out of love, he feels an even greater bliss than when he's simply experiencing the bliss of his own being. A nice understanding. Here's a letter from Srila Prabhupada to Rukmini in 1969. Bhakti Devi is the expansion of Srimati Radharani. So this is 1969 Prabhupada's teaching this, to very new devotees. Same image, similar message. Bhagavan's Vladini Shakti conveys bliss to him, as well as to others, and then this Vladini Shakti expands. So now we're moving on to Anucheda number 43, 143. Bhakti magnifies Bhagavan's intrinsic bliss. It's this important word, yatarham. Although intrinsically Atma Rama, Bhagavan's mercy in the matter of bhakti occurs in precise accord, yatarham, with the actual intent of the petitioner. This is so because when devotees worship Bhagavan while praying, that normal love for him will manifest in their hearts, Atmani. It is imperative that in fulfilling their request, he bestows love upon them that is both ontologically real and in precise accord with the actual intent of their prayer, the arham. The nice word. Sanskrit is precise. It is thus concluded that although Bhagavan is the personification of bliss, his exaltation reaches a crescendo through devotion. So it's like Yetama Prapajante Tansadai Prajami from Bhagavad Gita. As they Prapajante, as they surrender to me, I reward them accordingly. So Krishna knows it can be in the form of prayer, but it can be doesn't have to be audible. It's just the heart. If he's in the heart, he knows. We may articulate, we may not, but he knows. And precisely the arham, according to the intent behind the prayer, Krishna will reciprocate. He does reciprocate. And he asks for it. He can. And then the other part is it's palpable, or it's real. It's not cosmetic or imaginary or something. It's substantial. The happiness that a devotee experiences in relation to Krishna, happiness that one experiences in relation to things material. It's not happiness, it's ephemeral. It's not what real happiness is. But with bhakti, it's real. And it's corresponding to what's in their heart. He bestows love upon them that is both ontologically real and in precise accord with their desires. And that's the nature of bhakti, the nature of the happiness of us, and that nature of happiness of Bhagavan by investing bhakti shakti. Here's a nice example. This is a photograph of a book written by Borijan Prabhu, and a little personal sharing. Once upon a time, I was a college kid, and so was Borijan. We went to the same college, State University of New York, Buffalo. And I didn't know anything about Prabhupada, but he did. And one day we were having lunch in the student union, and blah, blah, blah. In the course of the conversation, he wasn't like preaching to me, but just being a friend. He's good. So in the course of the conversation, he said, here, take one of these. No big deal. It was Back to Godhead magazine. And I didn't know Back to Godhead magazine, they didn't know nothing about that. I knew him. So I accepted it because it was from him. I kept it with me. I had a clipboard, and the top of the clipboard was stack of books. I put it in the top of the clipboard. One fine day, some days later, somebody saw that magazine. They said, "Oh no, you're not into that, are you?" And I said, "What's that?" "You don't want to be into that." So I was curious, so I did the magazine. That was my first Krishna conscious literature. Surreptitious as it was. The first article, that particular, the way that Back to God magazine was, there was no money. So they had mimeograph copies. There's no such thing as mimeograph anymore, but it was like a tumbler. You manually turn the tumbler, and pages get picked up by the tumbler, and you print out something, and then they stapled them together. That was Back to God magazine. So that particular issue was the feature article was an essay by Bhaktisiddhanta. The Bhagavad is ontology and morphology. So I had to look up the meaning of 3 words just even in the title. The Bhagavad is ontology and morphology. Okay. 3 hours later, I read the whole article. And two things. I concluded I didn't understand it because his language is like that. I outlined and circled and put things in the margin and had my dictionary right by me. And I don't understand. And the second thing was very important, very important. It helped me experience something that I never experienced before because I was in a stage of searching, and here comes this Bhakti magazine with Bhakti Siddhanta, the featured person. And a kind of consciousness that I had never experienced before was the result of that 3 hours of being in Bhakti Siddhanta's association that I didn't understand. It was important. And since then, a great affection and affinity for Bhakti Siddhanta. And also for Gorjan, for the magazine that he gave. So he wrote a book of his association with Prabhupada. As you see, he's sitting in Hong Kong with Prabhupada because many things happened. One of the many things that happened was Prabhupada saw that Gorjan would be best situated as a householder. Although in many persons, he was encouraging to take sannyas. So Prabhupada, had a female disciple in Australia that was a budding actress, and he requested his disciple after she was initiated, I'd like you to go marry Gurjan. She had never met him, like this is a Western girl. And she said, yeah. And they got married. And the first assignment after marriage was Hong Kong.
Wow.
So for 3 years, they lived in Hong Kong, husband and wife. And his description in the My Glorious Master was it was very austere. Very austere. So in this book, he writes that in precise accord with the actual intent of their prayer, Gorjan was desiring a personal service to Prabhupada. So here, the personal service, he's right by Prabhupada's side in Hong Kong in the airport. And someone else, obviously a third person, taking the photo. And his desire that he had, he didn't write it in a letter. He didn't express it, but he had a desire. So Krishna made some arrangement. Oh, Prabhupada, please let me serve you. My desire to serve you has increased. Please let me be your servant. Please let me serve. Let my service to you increase. And with that, that's when he got the service of being, in charge of the place, because Prabhupada was very expensive, like very expensive. A new person and his newly married wife off to Hong Kong. There's a similar gifts we have Kami Krishna on the altar. Please, Kamiya. You've seen? On the altar there's a deity of Krishna. And Krishna is holding the tail of the Kaliya serpent. And I asked, so he showed me, underneath, Krishna is dancing on the hood of the Kaliya serpent beneath the deity on the left. So here's the prayers, from the prayers of the Kaliya serpent. Since you are the abode of contrary qualities, you should be merciful to Kaliya, who is also fit to be punished. Now, in the early part of the prayers, they're saying, he's our husband, yes, but what he did was bad. They identified the bad things that he did, so he's fit to be punished. We have no objection. But you're the abode of contrary qualities, and so you're merciful along with punishing, and so please be merciful. Who's also fit to be punished. And he did that. His punishment was his smashing his hooves, but his mercy was the dust from his feet was touching the hooves of the Kaliya serpent, and he became purified. all of his bad, punishable qualities and characteristics were taken away by the touch of Krishna's lotus feet. Now it's a bit of a hard case because Krishna had to dance really heavily and to smash his foot to the point where they were bleeding. That so LD indicates Lago Bhagavatam, part of this verse. Similarly, this is on the Yatarham meaning. This is Rupa Goswami. For those of you that wanted an introduction to the Goswamis, here's one of the foremost, if not the foremost, of the 6 Goswamis. And there he is under a kadamba tree, writing Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And this particular event occurred, actually an event in his life. He knew that that particular day was his elder brother's birthday, Sanatana Goswami's birthday. And he was just thinking, wouldn't it be nice if I could make a nice offering to my brother on his birthday? And writing, just with that thought, that desire, get out of. So down the path came a young girl who he had seen before, and she introduced herself as the ladies in our village understood that today is your brother's birthday. So they asked me to bring to you this pot of milk and some ingredients so you could make some sweet rice for your brother on his birthday. And he thought, whoa, what good fortune. They know that my brother's birthday is today, so he prepared sweet rice. And then he took the sweet rice to where his brother was staying at that time. His brother was staying at a place, you're going to see the place. It's called, Pavan Sarovar. Where this writing takes place is a Kadamba grove, a grove of Kadamba trees. And not far from that is Pavan Sarovar. Pavan Sarovar is the lake Sarovar at the base of where Krishna and Nanda Maharaj resided in Madi Yashoda, up on top of the hill. And his brother had an ashram, or a place where he stayed under a tree in that area. So Rupa Goswami went to Pavan Sarovar, which was not far away from where he was writing his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and brought the sweet rice for his brother. He said, "This is for you, it's for your birthday." Really nice. Wow. I'm glad you thought of me on my birthday. And he started taking the sweet rice. And he felt an ecstasy. And then he started asking, where did you get this ingredients for the sweet rice? That he told him the story. And then Sanatana Goswami said, oh no, this isn't just sweet rice. This is Radharani brought you the ingredients to make the sweet rice. And you're having me engaged in accepting something from Radharani when my life was to serve Radharani. How horrible. But the sweet rice is so good. They continued because he understood that was the desire of Radharani, because it was the desire of his devotee, and therefore the karma. And the deliverer, in this case, is Radharani, Radharani Shakti. Bhakti is a manifestation of a modest, a very minuscule portion of Radharani's capacity to give happiness to Krishna. And by that, Krishna's happiness increases. That's the lesson. And this is the last slide. During the month of December, we're already in the next year, but in the month of December, I travel a lot. I visited 4 places, and during those 4 places, we had japa retreats. And this was one of the images that came with the japa retreat about being present with the Holy Name, being present present with Krishna. And I got this image from a devotee from Houston, because that's where one of the Japa retreats was. Shama Sundar Prabhu, disciple of Kamal Krishna Maharaj, who for years was serving as the president there, gathered funds, and that built this fabulous project in Houston Temple. And his dedication now is chanting japa. Presidency has been transferred to someone else, and he's now become much more of a sadhu. And one of the things he does, he has had a japa call that's, people from all over the world, literally so he starts at 2 o'clock in the morning to accommodate people in other parts of the world and conduct a japa call. And he shared this with me because he shares, from his experiences with japa. Be present and know I am here with you. So the painting is very simple. That person who is back to us, that's us. And he's in a boat with Krishna, and Krishna is helping that little person cross the ocean of your existence. And the method is their holy name. And of course, Hari Katha, along with Hari Nam. And by that method, Krishna is present with us. And one of the difficulties in chanting japa is we're sometimes, most of the time, distracted. We're not present. The mouth is going and the mind is somewhere. So being present, I like the language. It's very simple. One of the reasons I like it. I'm going to end with this. When I was a young devotee, there was a teaching the Prabhupada gave about deity worship. He said that of all the details of deity worship, 2 things are most important. 1, cleanliness. Those of you that have deities. Cleanliness. 2, punctuality. We're looking at a screen up here. Cleanliness and punctuality. So I said this in one situation. It was in Hartford, Connecticut, and the temple president's wife raised her hand. I know her Jivanasati. She said, Mother Jamuna taught me a third, as Prabhupada taught her how to do deity worship. So along with cleanliness and punctuality was being present. Isn't it possible you can be with the deity doing all the rituals and procedures, and your mind is somewhere else? So being present means your mind isn't somewhere else. You're with the person. The deity is a person, and the name is the same person, and be present with the person. When you're chanting japa, when you're doing deity worship, when you're cooking in the kitchen, when you're listening and dining, when you're doing your service to Krishna, you're present. Emotionally and mentally, and the subtle aspects of your life, be present, not just physical, but everything. Be present and know I am here with you. It's simple. So this is one of the images that became like a staple or a standard for the japa retreats before. Now probably continue with the future japa retreats. It's very nice music. Be present. I know I'm here with you. That's fun. I am here with you. Be present and know I am here with you. Yes. Across the ocean with your existence. Nice, robust gathering this evening. Thank you for coming. Especially those of you that were able to make it here on time. It was actually a special thank you. And those of you that came, although circumstances caused you to come a little bit later, you came, so thank you. And now is one of the best parts. This is the discussion from experience. The best part of any class is the discussion that comes after the class. It's a nice topic. This is the source, Bhakti Sandarbha, just 3 verses. Bhakti Shakti is effect upon the source of Bhakti. Any discussion or comments or reflections or anything you want to share? Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's my one question.
You gotta speak up so people in the room can hear.
2 questions I have. One is how the ultimate source of truth. I need the Krishna is the source of truth. But he is the ultimate
Source of everything.
source of everything. He becomes happy by getting devotional service, by receiving the devotional service, and as a devotee, we also become happy. So this effect, that bhakti effect on Krishna, that is subject of this talk.
That's it, yes.
How we get into that level of bhakti? That's question. We do bhakti,
But
so one question.
how to questions? I have my flashcard. Sadhu Sangha. And then you unpack Sadhu Sangha and you put it back together in Sadhu Sangha. So how does bhakti begin? There's some preliminary, Adao Shraddha, and then Sadhu Sangha. And then through the combination of faith and Sadhu Sangha, things start to happen. Bhajan Kriya. In the association of sadhus, you do what sadhus do. Bhajan. Now, let's say something a little bit further. In that process of sadhu sangha, there's hearing. That's an important part of sadhu sangha. But then being present and being in the service to those who are sadhus, and being in the presence of those who are sadhus, being present with those who are sadhus, is understanding what it is. This is bhakti. What it is that is important to them, and once you understand that, you try to assist them in that which is important to them. Because you're looking up, I respect them, and so what's important to them? Let me assist them. I'm this small little speck, and I'm not sadhu, but they're sadhu. So what can I, in my limitedness, do something that's meaningful to them? I'm going to give it a little example, a simple little example. When there was the Kurukshetra war was brewing, it hadn't happened yet. The Yudhishthir and the Pandava representatives wanted, and the residents of Dwarka, they wanted to not have a war between cousin brothers. So Krishna was requested, can you go as the emissary? Make a peace settlement. So there were different attempts, but one of the major attempts was a very nice photograph or painting. And over here is Duryodhana, over there is Dhritarashtra, and Krishna's given a nice seat. And in this assembly, Duryodhana wants to essentially butter up Krishna. So he wants that Krishna will be on his side, although he knows Krishna has friendship and love with the Pandavas. Everyone does. So to make that kind of gesture, it was a gesture only, cosmetic gesture. He invited Krishna, I'm the host of this gathering in Hastinapur. Please accept your lunch at my home. And Krishna declined, saying, there are two reasons why one might eat, and that is if you're hungry. I'm not hungry. And the second is, you may not be hungry, but if there's love, then you may eat, just out of love. But here there's no love, because those who are most dear to me, the Pandavas, are your bitterest enemies. So there's the opposite of love from you. So, no, thank you. Thank you, fine. I'm going to go have lunch with this love, although I'm not hungry. And where did he go? Vidura. But when he went to Vidura's home, Vidura wasn't home. His wife was there, and his wife was so excited that Krishna came to their home. They were poor. She gave whatever she had, which was bananas. But in her excitement, she peeled the bananas and gave him the peel.
Yeah.
And then when Vidura came home, he was holding his head, saying, "What are you doing?" And Krishna said, "It's not the banana or the banana peel, it's the love. That's when I'm accepting. When someone offers something, it's the love with which they're offering. It's the same as he says in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. So that's the essence of bhakti. So, and the nature of something that's offered with love, it brings, saying the subjective, it brings one to the point of satisfaction where there's no society to constitute. This is Brahmabhuta first of Bhagavad Gita. Brahmabhuta means, Prabhupada has explained, it means self-realization. Brahmabhuta, three things. Prasanatma, satisfied. So satisfied, not society to constitute, not an anchoring nor lamenting. You want something, no thank you. You lose something, no problem. No society, because it's temporary. No society to constitute. Some of say, Sarveshu Bhuteshu, Mad Bhaktim Lavate Karam. So Mad Bhaktim, responding to your question, Mad Bhaktim Lavate, Lavate is to attain. When it attains that stage where, from Krishna's perspective, that's where bhakti begins. Those three, prasanatma, neither hankering nor lamenting, and seeing all living entities equally. And then bhakti begins. Then it means before that, it's preliminary bhakti or sadhana bhakti, warm up before the game begins. Warming up before the game begins. So it's practice. That's nice. And then it begins. And when it begins, it's dynamic. So what about us? We're not in that the society, the constity, samak sarvesh. So we're in the sadhana bhakti stage. But so real bhakti is this elevated stage. Very elevated. And we're aspiring for that very elevated. So we're practicing. That's the sadhu sangha. We're in the association with sadhu-like personality. And we're practicing. Bhajan Kriya. And in the course of the Bhajan Kriya comes the next. Anartha Vritti stages. But bhakti is unmixed. And that is mixed. We want to get to the unmixed because we're mixed. Something, but mixed. It's a nice science. And it works. Anyone else? Host, what are hosts? What's your wife? You want to say? Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. So on the slide, last slide, like the last paragraph, you mentioned that be present.
Yeah.
So especially when it comes to Jiva, as you mentioned, the mind course,
Yeah.
so any practical points you would like to suggest, Martin?
I just did. Let's do it again. Oops. Be present. Supposing I'm not, I'm distracted. Be present. Be present, then you can say, why and what and how and all those. But if when chanting, this is the primary means of this, like, da 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 da, blah blah blah. The sound vibration is this is the primary means of perfection, elevation, but perfection, purification, but perfection, primary means. And what's our eligibility? Zip. Disqualifications many. Eligibility zip. And here we are. It is unqualified. Somehow some mercy fell, and I'm chanting. Distracted with chanting. Somehow. Now, my assignment is, this is your how to be present, because you're calling Krishna's hearing, he comes. He's there. He's with you. And no, I'm here with you. Well, I'm just covered with the entity, and yeah, but well, it's okay. Be present. And know. So it's that for me. I've been practicing chanting for a number of years. Maybe more years than some of the people in the room are old. That many years. And this is a very powerful tool. Same Sham Sundar. He's of similar age, and he's years and years and years and years and years of sacrifice and service. This is it. Not a silver bullet. It's not it, but it's a means to be focused when instead being focused or distracted. Now, there's other things. Satchidananda Swami calls it a wheelbarrow. You know about gardening and wheelbarrow, right? You know what wheelbarrow is? Supposing you're going to go do some gardening, it has two handles and one wheel in the front, and then you set the thing down. Then you put tools in the wheelbarrow, and you wheel over to your garden, and your garden, and you come back. Wheelbarrow. So some tools in the wheelbarrow. And there's this and that and the other thing and the other thing and the other thing. And they're to some extent they're effective. The experience is after some time the novelty wears off and the effectiveness wears off. The essence of it, the novelty doesn't wear off, is being present. You're in a relationship. You're calling Krishna and he comes. Supposing someone comes to your door. A friend comes to your door. And you're busy. Generally speaking, you may let them know I'm in the midst of this such and such that I can be with you in 5-10 minutes or whatever it is. And then when you're with the person, you're not text messaging for the next 20 minutes. You're present with the person because they're dear to you, or they want them to become dear to you. You want you to become dear to them. So be present. Same. Be present. Because the relationship. We're calling, Krishna comes. Immediately, no delay. He doesn't have to, but he does. So be present. So it's an understanding of cultivating a relationship of love. And when this is the what happens. When that happens, then that tendency stays with you the rest of the day. Just like, you're paying close attention, I'm paying close attention to you because it's important. The rest of it's important to you. It's important for everyone. I'm looking at you, not everyone. Let go in. Be present. And then that presence with Krishna is slowly gained. It extends to all the other activities of life. There's a lot of other activities you do besides. When you're chanting, it's the one thing. Be present with only me. Not other things. Not a time to fill in the blank. Think of all the things that you should be doing that you're not doing. Or something, a problem and try to solve the problem instead of being present with Krishna. A or B. Your problem solving, if you become a pure devotee, if that perfection state comes, will Krishna give better intelligence how to address a difficulty or remove the difficulty per se because you're near to him? Or just you spend time, you're distracted while chanting and you're processing the problem? Because a major part of life is we want happiness, we want to minimize distress. What's going to be more effective? And in practical terms, be present and live your life that way. And suppose you get distracted, hit the reset button. Step back and ask your, it can be very quick, but ask yourself the question, what am I doing? What's life? What's it all about? However or some prayer or prayers that you like. Stop periodically and recite some prayers that are meaningful, that touch your heart. Reflect on those and then resume your chanting. Those are some of the tools. That's what you want to. You put that in your wheelbarrow and off you go to the garden. But the why drives the what and the how. And if the why isn't there, the what and the how, it's like a child playing with a toy. After some time, they're distracted by the toy.
Thank you so much for your answer.
You have a second question?
No, I'm good. Thank you. It was
Okay.
very helpful.
Shari, you send me a little text message, and I'm going to send you this image, and then you can forward the image to everybody, your WhatsApp group, however you do it, and then you'll have the image. You can do it with what you want. You can thank Shamsundar, because he's where I got this from. He gave me inspiration to share it with others, with the top retreats. Now, anything else? Yeah?
So it is said that the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that lust is the greatest enemy. And lust is the transformation of love. Yes. In some format, in material world, it sees as an anarth. It's what we are trying to do by chanting, is to do the anarth in everything. So, we're talking about the spiritual world somehow here, and we are entrapped in this with our dearest enemy, Mr. Lust. And we are trying to get away from that. Maybe make it more sublime.
No.
Lust is like
Transform it, not just make it more sublime. Just transform it. Okay, go ahead.
So in lust there is a me focus, and in love there is a me
Well,
focus.
just keep it simple. I want to enjoy. That's lust. I'm the object, and the world out there, stuff, that's subject. That is meant to bring my sense satisfaction. That's the purpose of stuff, purpose of creation. I am to be happy. And love is. Krishna is the source of everything, and his happiness is everything. So that we consider how he can become happy, and whether some of the lakshanas or characteristics that I can judge, and am I, is Krishna becoming happy? So it's restoring the reality from the position of illusion. There's a reflection of there, the image is casting the reflection. So go for the image, not for the reflection. Now, you can expand your question.
So my question, in a way, is it is said that when we love somebody, that love, as you said, reflects on us and it increases. It to both to the other person and to you. But the lust is kind of has a negative cycle. Love has a positive increasing cycle. Lust has a decreasing cycle. But we are not able to realize that in our dealings with love, especially with Krishna. We sometimes experience it while dealing with devotees, and sometimes we have, but that's not very long lasting.
What's the punchline?
So the whole process of bhakti is to put us out of this loop of lust.
Yeah, in simple language, you have a dimmer switch, and the darkness is the lust. Turn on the light, not just flip the from 0 to a 1, but dimmer switch. So move in the direction, sadhana, move in the direction of light. And what is that? Krishna should be pleased, not my senses. If it's inconvenient to my senses, that's okay, provided Krishna is pleased. I can accept this, that, or the other restriction in my lifestyle because Krishna is pleased.
Very often we come to bhakti also for our own pleasure.
Of course, it's not new. Now, what to do? Dial up the mic. And by doing that, by the process of hearing, and quantitative and qualitative both, then light. That means the darkness tendency, the material, the mix tendency, moves in the direction of unmix. It can.
So that will imply that we are not necessarily having so-called naive bodily experience. In a sense, it may be a painful experience, body, but yet we might be serving.
Yeah. Called life. But let it be Krishna-centered. Because no, I'm here with you. That's in essence. Oh. I get your message, and this dial up that Krishna should be pleased dial. And consider what are those things that make Krishna happy, and do those things more. And by doing those things more, the mix diminishes. Then there's the 4 prohibitions. So that's the dividing line. And some persons may not be able to follow those 4, but we have, and we follow, and we don't go the other way. Then we continue to dial up within that framework. Krishna should be pleased. Sadhana bhakti. Anyone else? Yeah.
How did Krishna make other universes?
How did Krishna make other universe?
Like all the planets.
Okay, there's planets within each universe, and there's unlimited numbers of universes. So how did he? That's your question.
Yeah.
He has unlimited potency through his unlimited potency. He does. We can't, but we're not Krishna. And the observation from the Vedas, he breathed, and as he breathed, universes come. When he inhales, universes go back into his body. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. We breathe, but the universes are coming. Because our Shakti, our potency is very small. Something comes, like maybe microbes from our breath or something. Some of them begin to come out or something. But
Thank you.
he's all powerful. Because we can't do it doesn't mean Krishna can't do it. He does to an expansion of himself. A portion of a plenary portion of himself. That's how powerful Krishna is.
I have a simple question.
Yeah,
So I'm from Guyana.
okay.
So within our community, like our temples and stuff, there's like when we're doing puja, there's always distraction. People will talk over you, especially like if there's a pravachan or deep meditation. Do you correct that person? Like if there's one person and is there any sin associated with correct that person? Like,
No, there's no. It's a matter of relationship and having having culture to know how and when and how not and how not when. Is someone to be corrected? Yes, depending upon who you are and depending upon who they are and the circumstance. I'll give an example that you'll hopefully like very much. You and I, we can learn a lot from reading these biographies of Srila Prabhupada and how he began the Hare Krishna movement. And when he began, the devotees didn't know anything. And he knew that they didn't know anything. And they wanted to please him, but they didn't really know how to please him. So they would do things that were really silly. I mean, disturbing. And he made no comment, just tolerated it. He didn't correct them. Knowing that their sincerity would take its course, and the process of hearing and so forth would take its course. There's an example I'm thinking of as I'm speaking, and that's at the initiation of Shyama Prabhu and Malaki. You know their names? You know Malaki's name. And Shyama was her husband. And at their initiation, there was a fire yajna, because that's a standard procedure. So it was inside 26 2nd Avenue. No, it was in the storefront in San Francisco, and the fire wasn't burning properly. So they blew on the fire to help the fire burn properly, which isn't the right way to make the fire increase. But they blew, and then the smoke went in Prabhupada's face. Because he was the opposite of them. So they're blowing on it. He made no comment. He didn't say anything. And it was okay. He was okay. They were okay. They understood later how foolish they were. But they learned by the process of wanting to Prabhupada to be pleased. So if there's somebody in Guyana or any place, and they're speaking when they shouldn't be speaking, or speaking loudly when they shouldn't be speaking loudly, or carrying on in some way. It depends. Should they be corrected? Yeah, but in what way, at what time, and what circumstance? Maybe later pull them to the side so they're not embarrassed and having a public embarrassment of being corrected. So maybe not. So it depends on the person, the circumstance, and everything, and who, and you, and or those who are maybe speak to a person of authority. This individual needs some help because they don't understand. They probably don't even understand how they're being disrupted. So you're a senior person. Could you think of a good way would you like to take care of? And so if you have options, and then you or I or anyone consider what the options are while continuing to be respectful, not unlimitedly intolerant, but something needs to be said and something is said. And the person isn't cordial and something else needs to be done. Put in a penalty box until they can properly. If it's too disruptive, depending. So it takes intelligence to know what, when, and how to do. But if something is needed, maybe the purification of bhakti itself will take care of that person and their tendency to be disruptive. Maybe not. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so what are like what's the most important or like very important Bhagavad Gita verses I should know?
What's the most important or very important?
Bhagavad Gita.
What are the important Bhagavad Gita verses?
Bhagavad Gita verses. Do you have your favorites?
Oh,
Kind of.
yeah.
Okay. Well, there's many. But if you want me to narrow it down to like not so many.
What's your favorite?
No. A very important verse is 1866. You know the verse? Sarvadharmam parijnana mamekam sharanam praja aham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshayami vastucha. Coming up soon is the appearance day of Ramanujacharya. Ramanujacharya is from a different sampradaya, but he's way up there in personality. One of the original founder of that, the teachings, he put it in written form, their teachings of that Sri Sampradaya. And there are four most important verses in the Sri Sampradaya. One of them is that one. And they have great deal of writing and teachings on that important verse. Mam ekam sharanam. Ekam means one. Eka. Mam ekam. Sharanam. That's the whole topic of what sharana, surrender. There are teachings and teachings and teachings on what is surrender. So that's an important verse. You know the name Bhaktivinoda Thakur?
I think I have it.
Okay. You know Prabhupada? Yeah. Prabhupada had a spiritual master, and his spiritual master's name was, I mentioned it already today, Bhaktisiddhanta. Bhaktisiddhanta was Prabhupada's spiritual master. Bhaktisiddhanta was Prabhupada's spiritual master. Bhaktisiddhanta had a father who was also one great acharya in our line of discussion. His name was Bhaktivinoda. And Bhaktivinoda wrote lengthy songs called Charanagati. Songs describing surrender. There's like, I forget the number of songs, 32 songs, something like that, describing the different elements that make up surrender. So it's a nice topic. It's a nice verse. It's very important. 1866. If you want to learn a verse, that's a good one to learn.
It's also
Wait a minute, I want to tell you some other ones. How many chapters are there in Bhagavad Gita?
18.
18. So you divide 18 by 3, what does that equal? You good math?
6.
Yeah. 6 plus 6 plus 6 equals 18, right? So at the end, very important verse, at the end of chapter 6, it introduces the next 6 chapters. So the last verse of chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita is a very important verse. That's a good one for you to learn. Because it says what bhakti is going to describe to you how to perform the topmost system of yoga. The topmost system of yoga. And it's 2 things, what the body does and what the mind does. It's a nice verse. You want to know how to do bhakti? Read that verse. It tells you. Least principle. And then the very next verse is it's explaining what the next 6 chapters are going to, or a summary, introduction. So 7.1 and the last verse of chapter 6. Those are very important verses I like very much. So you're asking which ones I like. They're all important. Those 3 stand out. There's others, but enough. You have a second question.
Yeah. So you know how there's a Bhagavad Gita Jayanti where they recite the whole.
Yeah, I know about it.
So
Yeah.
is there one for Bhagavatam and like other Vedic books? And they recite the whole thing in one.
Well, they're not the same kind because the Bhagavad Gita was spoken in a few hours. And there's a day in the lunar calendar when the Bhagavatam is spoken. So that's the Gita Jayanti, the appearance of Bhagavad Gita. But the Bhagavatam was for 7 days. So there's no calendar date marking when the Bhagavatam was spoken and when it ended that I'm aware of. Maybe there is, I don't know. Probably somewhere. And then the other Vedas, that they're compiled by Vyas. So when they were present, this was the beginning of creation. Let me ask you, how old is eternal? Eternal. It has no beginning, right?
Mhm.
So how do you put a date on something that has no beginning?
Good question.
Yeah, that's thoughtful. Keep asking good questions like this. Go to the right sources when you ask. Okay, looks like we're finished for the evening. So tomorrow morning there's a class, and tomorrow midday there's a class. We'll see one of those, hopefully. So,
Yes.